Ever notice how some people can make you feel completely captivated without saying a single romantic word? How they can draw you in with nothing more than a glance, a carefully timed pause, or a conversation that somehow feels different from every other interaction you've had? Well, if you've experienced this mysterious pull, chances are you've encountered an INTJ in their natural flirting habitat. And trust me, you probably had no idea what was happening. INTJ make up only about 2% of the population, which means they're rare enough that most people have never actually witnessed their unique approach to romantic interest. These are the architects, the masterminds, the people who can see patterns and possibilities that others completely miss. And when it comes to attraction, they operate on a completely different level than everyone else. Here's the thing about INTJ flirting. It's not flirting in the way you think you know flirting. There are no cheesy pickup lines, no obvious compliments about your appearance, no dramatic gestures or over-the-top romantic displays. Instead, INTJ flirting is subtle, strategic, and so sophisticated that you might walk away from an interaction feeling strangely energized without understanding why. Today, we're diving deep into the mysterious world of how INTJ express romantic interest, and I guarantee some of these behaviors will surprise you. Whether you're trying to figure out if that quiet, intense person in your life is interested in you, or you're an INTJ yourself wondering if your signals are getting through, this video is going to give you insights that most people never pick up on. So buckle up, because we're about to decode the subtle art of INTJ attraction. And by the end of this, you'll never miss these signs again. The first thing you need to understand about INTJ flirting is that it starts with something most people wouldn't even recognize as romantic interest. INTJ don't flirt with their words or their bodies initially. They flirt with their attention. And for an INTJ, attention is the most precious currency they have. Think about it this way. INTJ are incredibly selective about where they focus their mental energy. They have rich inner worlds, complex projects, and deep interests that consume most of their thinking time. So when an INTJ starts giving you their genuine attention, when they remember details about conversations you had weeks ago, when they ask follow-up questions about things you mentioned in passing, that's not just politeness. That's romantic interest. But here's what makes this so easy to miss. The attention doesn't look like traditional flirting. An INTJ won't stare at you across a crowded room or find excuses to bump into you. Instead, they'll listen to you with an intensity that's almost unsettling. They'll remember that you mentioned being stressed about a work presentation, and 3 days later, they'll ask how it went. They'll notice patterns in your behavior that even you haven't picked up on. This kind of attention is their way of studying you, of understanding what makes you tick. And for an INTJ, the desire to understand someone on a deep level is one of the strongest indicators of romantic interest you'll ever see. The second sign that an INTJ is flirting with you is something I call intellectual seduction, and it's probably the most misunderstood aspect of how they express attraction. INTJ don't try to impress you with their looks, their wealth, or their social connections. They try to impress you with their mind. When an INTJ is interested in you romantically, they'll start sharing their thoughts, ideas, and insights in a way that's designed to showcase their intellectual depth. But this isn't showing off in the traditional sense. They're not trying to make you feel stupid or prove how smart they are. Instead, they're trying to create a connection on a mental level that goes deeper than surface conversation. You'll notice this when they start bringing up topics that require real thought. They might ask your opinion on something complex, share a fascinating article they read, or present you with an interesting problem to solve together. The key here is that they're not just making conversation. They're testing to see if you can match their intellectual energy, if you enjoy the kind of deep thinking that occupies most of their mental space. This is where many people miss the romantic undertones completely. They think the INTJ is just being friendly, or they assume the person is more interested in the topic than in them. But for an INTJ, intellectual compatibility is often more important than physical attraction, at least in the beginning stages of romantic interest. When they share their thoughts with you, when they ask for your perspective on complex issues, when they seem genuinely excited to debate ideas with you, they're essentially saying, "I find your mind attractive." This is INTJ flirting at its most pure form. The third way INTJ flirt is through what I call strategic vulnerability. And this one is particularly subtle because it goes against everything most people think they know about INTJ personality. INTJs are known for being private, reserved, and somewhat mysterious. They don't typically share personal information easily, and they're very protective of their inner world. But when an INTJ is romantically interested in someone, they'll start revealing carefully selected pieces of themselves. This isn't the kind of oversharing that happens when someone's trying too hard to connect. Instead, it's strategic disclosure of personal information that's designed to create intimacy without overwhelming the other person. You might notice that they tell you about a book that changed their perspective on life, or they share a childhood memory that explains something about their personality. They might reveal a goal they're working toward, or describe a challenge they're facing that they wouldn't normally discuss with others. These moments of openness are significant because they represent the INTJ's way of testing whether you can be trusted with deeper parts of themselves. What makes this particularly powerful is that INTJ are excellent at reading people, so they usually have a good sense of whether their vulnerability will be received well. When they choose to be open with you, it's because they've already determined that you're someone worth taking that emotional risk with. The fourth sign is perhaps the most practical and yet most overlooked. INTJ express romantic interest by becoming genuinely helpful in ways that matter. But this isn't the kind of help that involves grand gestures or expensive gifts. Instead, it's targeted assistance that demonstrates they've been paying attention to your actual needs and challenges. An INTJ who's interested in you will notice when you're struggling with something and offer solutions that are genuinely useful. They might send you an article that addresses a problem you mentioned, introduce you to someone who could help with a project you're working on, or suggest a more efficient way to handle something that's been frustrating you. This helpfulness comes from their natural problem-solving orientation, but when it's directed towards someone they're romantically interested in, it becomes much more focused and personal. They're not trying to fix you or take over your life. Instead, they're demonstrating their value as a potential partner by showing how they can contribute to making your life better in concrete ways. The beauty of this approach is that it builds genuine appreciation and connection. When someone consistently offers helpful insights or solutions that actually work, you start to see them as someone who adds real value to your life. For INTJ, this is exactly the kind of foundation they want to build romantic relationships on. What makes all of these signs particularly challenging to recognize is that they don't look like traditional flirting behaviors. There's no playful teasing, no obvious physical flirtation, no dramatic declarations of interest. Instead, INTJ flirting is sophisticated, subtle, and designed to build genuine connection rather than surface-level attraction. The fifth way INTJ flirt is through something I call future projection. And this is where their natural strategic thinking becomes a romantic tool. When an INTJ is interested in you, they'll start including you in their mental models of the future. But they won't do this in obvious ways like saying, "I can see us together," or making premature commitments. Instead, they'll subtly weave you into conversations about future plans, ideas, and possibilities. You might notice they start mentioning events happening months from now and casually ask if you'd be interested in attending. They might discuss a book they want to read and suggest you both read it at the same time. Or they'll talk about a skill they want to develop and wonder if you'd want to learn it together. These aren't direct invitations to a future relationship, but they're tests to see how you respond to the idea of ongoing connection. This future-oriented thinking is deeply ingrained in the INTJ personality. They're always thinking several, planning moves ahead. So when they start mentally including you in their future scenarios, it's a significant indicator that they see potential for something long-term. They're not interested in casual flings or short-term attractions. They're evaluating whether you could be part of their carefully constructed life plan. The sixth sign is what I call the competence appreciation approach. INTJ are attracted to capability and excellence, and when they're romantically interested in someone, they'll go out of their way to acknowledge and appreciate your skills, talents, and achievements. But this isn't generic flattery or empty compliments about your appearance. Instead, an INTJ will notice specific things you do well and comment on them in ways that show they've been paying genuine attention. They might praise the way you handled a difficult situation, acknowledge your expertise in a particular area, or express admiration for a skill you possess. The key difference is that their compliments are always substantive and specific. This competence-based appreciation serves multiple purposes for the INTJ. First, it demonstrates that they value you for meaningful qualities rather than superficial traits. Second, it shows that they've been observing you carefully enough to notice these specific capabilities. And third, it's their way of signaling that they see you as an equal, someone whose abilities they genuinely respect. For INTJ, mutual respect and admiration are essential foundations for romantic attraction. They can't be interested in someone they don't respect intellectually and professionally. So when they start highlighting your competencies, they're essentially saying that you meet their high standards for a potential partner. The seventh way INTJ express romantic interest is through exclusive access to their inner world. This goes beyond the strategic vulnerability we discussed earlier. When an INTJ is truly interested in someone, they'll start sharing their private thoughts, theories, and observations that they wouldn't share with anyone else. You might find yourself hearing about their latest project or idea before anyone else knows about it. They might share their analysis of a complex situation at work, or explain their theory about why certain social dynamics play out the way they do. They might even share their more unconventional or controversial opinions, testing to see how you react to their authentic thoughts. This exclusive access is incredibly significant because INTJ are very protective of their mental space. They don't share their unfiltered thoughts with just anyone. When they start treating you as a trusted confidant for their ideas and observations, it means they're considering you for a very exclusive position in their life. The eighth and perhaps most subtle sign is the way INTJ modify their communication style when they're romantically interested. Normally, INTJ can be quite direct and efficient in their communication. They say what they mean without a lot of extra words or emotional cushioning. But when they're interested in someone romantically, their communication becomes more nuanced and engaging. They might start using more humor, though it's usually dry and intellectual rather than obvious jokes. They might ask more questions and seem genuinely curious about your responses. Their messages might become longer and more detailed, They might even start using slightly more expressive language or sharing observations that reveal their emotional side. This shift in communication style is their way of creating a more intimate conversational dynamic. They're moving away from their default efficient mode and investing more energy in making their interactions with you engaging and meaningful. For someone who typically conserves their social energy, this increased investment in communication quality is a strong signal of romantic interest. The ninth way INTJ flirt is through what I call strategic proximity. Unlike more extroverted types who might seek constant contact, INTJ are selective about when and how they spend time with someone they're interested in. But they'll engineer situations where they can be around you in contexts that allow for meaningful interaction. They might suggest meeting for coffee to discuss a project, propose working together on something, or find reasons to be in the same spaces where they know you'll be. The key is that these aren't random encounters. They're carefully planned opportunities to spend quality time with you in environments where deeper conversation can happen naturally. This strategic approach to spending time together reflects their preference for purposeful interaction over casual socializing. They're not interested in hanging out just for the sake of it. They want time with you to have meaning and substance, to build towards something more significant than surface-level friendship. What makes INTJ flirting so effective, once you understand it, is that it's built on genuine compatibility rather than superficial attraction. They're not trying to sweep you off your feet with grand gestures. Instead, they're methodically determining whether you're someone they could build a meaningful, long-term connection with. And if you can recognize and appreciate these subtle signals, you're experiencing one of the most thoughtful and intentional approaches to romantic attraction you'll ever encounter. So there you have it. The subtle and sophisticated world of INTJ flirting laid bare. From giving you their precious attention to strategically including you in their future plans. From intellectual seduction to exclusive access to their inner thoughts, INTJs have their own unique language of attraction that operates completely below the radar of conventional romantic behavior. Understanding these signs isn't just about recognizing when an INTJ is interested in you. It's about appreciating a completely different approach to human connection. One that prioritizes depth over drama, substance over surface, and genuine compatibility over fleeting attraction. When an INTJ chooses to pursue someone romantically, they're not just looking for a temporary connection. They're evaluating whether you could be a true intellectual and emotional partner for the long haul. If you're someone who's been on the receiving end of these behaviors, now you know that what felt like friendship or professional interest might actually be something much deeper. And if you're an INTJ yourself, maybe this video has helped you realize that your signals might be more subtle than you thought. Either way, remember that the best relationships are built on mutual understanding and appreciation. The next time someone gives you their undivided attention, challenges your thinking, shares their private insights, or quietly helps you solve problems, don't dismiss it as mere friendliness. You might just be witnessing one of the most thoughtful and intentional forms of flirting in the human experience. Like, share, and subscribe if you felt this, and drop a red heart in the comments to let the rest of us know you're watching.